A pool stick in a church playroom randomly snaps in half without anyone near it, and the church is already known for decades of paranormal stories. A hospital security guard watches a wheelchair turn itself around in the middle of an empty room, and in Pakistan a motorcycle appears to roll and tip over by itself. This is disturbing surveillance footage experts can't debunk. What in the world is going on with this pool stick? This one comes from Reddit user Pumpkin Man, who shared the footage along with the caption, "I have a video of surveillance camera footage capturing a pool stick inexplicably snap itself in half on the leg of a pool table. This happened in a children's playroom at a small rural church. There have been dozens of other incidents of paranormal activity at this church, spanning multiple decades. The people, who I know personally, that took this video and work at this church fully believe the place is haunted by a child ghost." Now, I gotta say, I've seen some paranormal videos on this channel before. This one's up there for me. This is pretty weird. The way that thing's moving sounds like they believe what they're seeing. This next video comes from a hospital. A security guard was doing his rounds when he came across this wheelchair in the middle of the room. So he stands there, scratching his head, probably wondering what it's doing sitting there, but then it starts to move. At first he doesn't notice it, but when he turns back to look at the chair, it's of course now facing in the total opposite direction, so all he can do is stand there stunned, likely too petrified to move. It's bad enough worrying about your bike getting stolen as it is without ghosts getting involved. This security footage was captured in Pakistan back in 2020. So what in the world? Now, there doesn't seem to be any strong winds blowing. Of course, there's nobody nearby either. Nothing that would cause the bike to roll on its own like that and then fall to the ground. So what happened? Was a ghost trying to steal someone's bike, then realized that they had no clue how to ride and just ditched it? Probably. But what do you all think? Thoughts in the comments, please. This one comes from Reddit user Signal Pollution 4881, who says he used to work at a haunted movie theater. He shared this security footage of something seeming to move past the camera. Take a look at this. Now, this footage on its own, I mean, it's weird, but it's not that crazy, right? Well, the backstory, there's a lot going on. So he and his brother worked the night shift cleaning the theater, and from their first shift, something felt off. During that first night, the uploader heard a baby crying in an empty auditorium, even though the building had been closed for hours. He searched the entire place, but it was empty. And over the next several months, they experienced odd things, doors opening and closing on their own, unexplained footsteps in the upstairs projector room. Eventually, even his brother, who'd been skeptical at first, became convinced that something was definitely wrong. About 6 or 7 months in, the uploader was alone upstairs when he saw a black figure about 20 feet away. It seemed to have no face. It was just this eerie, shadowy mass. Terrified, he ran off without even saying a word to his brother. From then on, he constantly felt like he was being watched through the projection windows. About a year later, his brother saw a thick black smoke cloud form out of nowhere in the bathroom before vanishing. Shaken, they finally started talking about their experiences. They kept working there though, because the pay was decent and the shifts were short. The activity mostly quieted down, just the occasional mysterious footstep. Sometimes they'd see things moving and would hear disembodied voices. This video came later after they'd already quit. It was sent to him by a former coworker around Halloween and seems to show the same black figure he once saw in the projection booth. This is archival footage of a nuclear test being carried out at a site called Maralinga in Australia. The British government carried out a series of nuclear tests here between 1956 and 1963. 7 nuclear explosives were detonated above ground, along with over 600 minor trials. These minor tests were anything but harmless though. They involved experiments with plutonium, uranium, and other toxic stuff that spread contamination across the area. The fallout impacted not just the test site, but also nearby Aboriginal communities, many of whom were never properly warned or relocated. And the cleanup, which didn't start until decades later, has been heavily criticized. At one point, workers just bulldozed contaminated soil into pits and buried it. Some plutonium-contaminated areas were only partially cleaned and still are a risk today. Even after remediation, scientists have found radioactive particles spread far beyond the core test zones. Maralinga is technically open to visitors now, and some tours are available, but access is limited, which is a good thing. Long-term effects of the testing on the indigenous people here is still not addressed all that well, and the full health impact still isn't fully known. So it's isolated, but it's one of the most contaminated places in the southern hemisphere. This is footage taken in what's called a radon health mine. So this is a place where people pay to inhale radioactive gas for health reasons. The one you're looking at here happens to be in Germany, but Montana is really the place to go if you want to try this out for yourself, which I wouldn't do, but some swear by it. So in Montana, there are a handful of abandoned uranium mines that have been repurposed into these radon health mines. These mines naturally emit radon gas, which is radioactive and is said to increase your risk of cancer. But for decades, some people have believed that short-term exposure can actually help with conditions like arthritis, asthma, and just chronic pain. So instead of avoiding it, visitors pay to spend hours underground sitting in folding chairs just breathing it in. It's not backed by any major medical organizations, and the long-term effects here are questionable at best. Radon is a known carcinogen, and the Environmental Protection Agency lists it as the second leading cause of lung cancer in the US. Gotta say, this has to be one of the strangest uses of a radioactive site. This was the Baker Event nuclear test conducted at Bikini Atoll on July 25th of 1946. Bikini Atoll, part of the Marshall Islands in the Pacific, was used by the United States as a nuclear testing site after World War II. Between 1946 and 1958, the US detonated 23 nuclear weapons here, including some of the most powerful ever tested. The most infamous was Castle Bravo in 1954, which ended up being more than twice as powerful as expected and spread radioactive fallout across a much wider area than they'd planned. Nearby islanders weren't given proper warning and were exposed to high levels of radiation. Some were relocated, but the long-term effects were pretty bad, mainly increased cancer rates and, again, birth defects. To this day, the area is uninhabitable. Some former residents have been allowed some short visits, but nobody actually lives here full time. Oddly though, they tried to promote Bikini as a great place to dive. To be fair, the lagoon is filled with shipwrecks from World War II, but that's because it was a fleet used as nuclear target practice. Yeah, I don't know if this would be the first place on my list of diving destinations. This is Lop Nur in Xinjiang, China. It's a dried up lake bed also known as the Sea of Death. For decades, this was China's main nuclear testing site. Starting in the 60s all the way up to 1996, they ran 45 nuclear tests out here. They dropped explosives from planes, they did underground detonations, and blew up hydrogen bombs. It's super remote, which made it ideal for military use, but that didn't mean people weren't being affected. Some of the blasts released huge clouds of radioactive dust, and to this day, no one really knows the full impact on people or the environment. After the last test in 1996, the site went quiet. Until recently, in late 2023, satellite images showed some new construction popping up. Roads, fences, some buildings. Some think China's getting ready to start testing again, which the government has, of course, denied. So in 1977, during a regular news broadcast in southern England, the audio suddenly cut out. The picture went all fuzzy, and there was this buzzing noise. Then a strange metallic voice cut in, claiming to be Vrilon from the Ashtar Galactic Command. And for nearly 6 minutes it delivered this bizarre message, warning humanity to stop fighting, destroy its weapons, and prepare for a great awakening. It also told viewers that they were being watched and guided by beings from other worlds. The station was completely unaware of what was going on until people started calling in. Engineers figured out someone had hijacked the signal by targeting a specific transmitter that rebroadcast signals from another tower, basically exploiting a weak point in the system. But even still, they never found out who actually did this. Whoever it was, though, needed some serious technical skill and equipment. People have analyzed every part of this message. Some say it was just a prank, others think it was someone who genuinely wanted to put this message out there, and then there are those who actually think this message was coming from somewhere up in space. I'd love to believe that, but I don't. Back in March of 2015, Coco 5 News in Oklahoma City was running a normal early morning traffic report. Nothing exciting, just the usual aerial feed from their Grand Casino Skycam out in Shawnee. But then, out of nowhere, this glowing white object zipped across the screen at lightning speed. It was super fast, too fast to be a plane, and the movement doesn't look like a drone either. The news anchors didn't even notice it live. Viewers caught it first and started flooding the station with questions. To their credit, the news station didn't ignore it. They re-aired the footage and posted it online, asking the public to help figure out what it was. Problem is, nobody really could. It wasn't a meteor, those fall, they don't fly sideways at a steady height. It wasn't a bug on the lens either, the light shifts as it moves and you could see it behind distant clouds. It wasn't a military or commercial aircraft as far as anyone could tell, and it didn't match any scheduled flights. Despite being caught live on air and analyzed frame by frame, nobody's ever nailed down exactly what this thing was. Alright, this is an interesting one, because it's not what happened on TV that was the mysterious part, but what was going on with viewers while the broadcast was happening. So in 1992, the BBC aired a Halloween special called Ghost Watch. This was a fake documentary about a haunted house in North London. The thing banned it for a decade. In November of 2024, a local New York TV station was doing live helicopter coverage of traffic over the Hudson River. Same old stuff, until this strange glowing orb floats into the frame, hovering, changing color, then darting out of view. It starts out white and then turns blue and kind of semi-translucent before flying off. The anchor didn't react at the moment, but when the clip was shared online, people started talking about it. Some blamed lens flares, some guessed maybe it was a drone, others said a weather balloon, but the object didn't behave like any of those. It hovered, it changed color, then accelerated. Not even the FAA had an answer. These creepy images were shared to X by Scared for Life 2, who wrote that their friend works at Central Library in Manchester. In October of 2019, the uploader popped in for a visit, and the friends shared these images. They came from the security camera in the basement corridors. Now, I don't know about this place having any history of paranormal activity, but it was built in 1934, not super old, especially by England standards, but it is enough time to have racked up some history. And if anyone had died in the building, or was just someone who had a fondness for the place, maybe they never left. Remember the Myrtles Plantation? I've talked about it on the channel a number of times. It's said to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. Well, now we have some footage. This security camera happened to pick up something incredibly startling during a tour, right in the middle of the day. So the group is standing in the foyer. They're slowly making their way deeper into the home, very slowly, as this is not a group of spring chickens. And then suddenly, this happens. So a series of super loud bangs on the wall are heard, the mirror shakes violently, and then a sculpture falls down. Now, could this have been staged? There's always the possibility, but I hope that's not the case, because if it was, that was pretty messed up. You really shouldn't be playing pranks on old folks like this, especially with loud bangs. So this eerie piece of footage comes from a government office in Mexico City. According to the staff, especially the security guards, strange things were happening there all the time. They said they were constantly getting spooked, but the most disturbing part was that several of them claimed to see some kind of monk-like figure that would appear and harass them. People would also report hearing cries and screams in the early hours of the morning. Then, one night, a security camera finally captured this, which looked exactly like the creepy figure that had been terrifying them night after night. Imagine you're alone at home in the middle of the night, cleaning up around the house, when suddenly something cuts through the silence. It's a whisper, and Not only is it a whisper, but it's your name. This is what happened to Reddit user IggyTalls_15, who said, "I heard someone very distinctly whisper Mike from behind me. I thought one of my kids had walked downstairs, but when I saw there was no one, I bolted. It was just me and the dogs/cat around 12 a.m. This is also an old home from the 1850s, and a crew member who died in the Halifax explosion lived here in the early 1900s. Take a listen to this and a watch. Security footage from Wellington Indoor Market in Telford, England caught something that left workers a bit rattled the next day. When traders showed up one morning, they found a bunch of boxes scattered across the floor and stairs. At first they thought someone had broken in, of course, but when they checked the CCTV, what they saw was something else entirely. A dark, shadowy figure walking up the stairs and then knocking over the boxes. Now, it's not very easy to make out the figure walking up the stairs, but if you look closely enough, you can see some sort of shadowy shape appear. The boxes falling are clearly visible though. Market manager Kay Bokai said, "We came into the market in the morning and the boxes were all over the place. On the floor, over the stairs. We thought we'd had an intruder, so we obviously went straight to the CCTV. We couldn't believe what we saw. All the hairs stood up on the back of my neck. There was nobody there when the boxes fell off. We watched it again and we could see the shadow walking up the stairs then chucking the boxes over." End quote. Now, this market isn't new to strange activity. It's been around since 1244. According to Kay, sometimes there are strange things that go on when people are alone. Some people say they have seen a shadow go past them. She also mentioned an incident where, quote, "two people were alone in the market. They were talking when they heard coughing coming from the other side of the building. But when they looked around, it was totally empty." Other weird moments include doors slamming and hand dryers turning on by themselves. Who is this staring at the security camera after hours? So a security guard monitoring a CCTV system got an alert that someone was on the property after hours, well past closing time when no one should have been there, other than him, of course. When he checked the footage, what the camera caught was unsettling, to say the least. There's this small, ghostly figure with glowing eyes standing in the distance. Some have said it looks like a little boy, standing there, staring right at the camera. The clip has since been linked to the legend of the Pocong, a ghost from Indonesian and Malaysian folklore. According to the belief, a Pocong is the spirit of a dead person who's still wrapped in their burial shroud. In some versions of the legend, the soul remains trapped if the ties around the shroud aren't removed after 40 days. And the spirit is forced to wander, often appearing as this pale figure with bound limbs and a haunting stare. So what is this thing hovering in the sky? This footage is from a live news broadcast in Rio Branco, Brazil. On February 9th, 2009, TV Gazeta showed up to capture what witnesses described as a colorful object hovering over the city. Whatever this thing was, it changed color multiple times, flashing from blue to red to white. There were more than 25 witnesses that night who watched as this thing hovered in the sky for more than 2 hours. Then it moved from east to south and afterwards south to west. Pretty strange. Certainly doesn't look like a plane or satellite to me, and not that a drone would be totally unheard of in 2009. They certainly weren't as widely used as they are now, though. Till this day, we still don't know exactly what this thing was. Alright, this one's pretty ridiculous, but I do love me some possession videos. Always fun to see what weird noises these evil spirits force out of people's mouths. Back in 2016, something pretty strange happened on a Thai talk show. A model came on the show and told everyone that she had picked up a ghost while on vacation in the city of Rayong the year before. She said this ghost was a pop, a type of spirit in Thai culture that's known for having an uncontrollable hunger. At first, she just calmly explained what had happened to her. You know, ghost got inside my body somehow. Well, and then right in the middle of the interview, the pop just had to embarrass this poor woman on live television. To be fair though, she should have seen this coming. She'd been dealing with the thing's antics for a whole year at this point. Suddenly she seems to switch, like something else is talking through her. She started speaking in a different voice and just couldn't seem to snap out of it. No matter how much the hosts pushed her to stop, they kept telling the spirit to leave her alone, but it refused, making threats like, "Don't mess with me," which probably sounds a lot cooler in Thai. Then one of the hosts pulls out a necklace with a Buddha pendant. As soon as he held it up, she freaks out, screaming and recoiling in terror. Very loudly, I might add. I had to turn down the volume almost all the way because I was worried everyone was going to hear female screams through my headphones and that I'd be kindly asked to leave the office. Eventually, the host puts the necklace on her though, and just like that, she seems to come back to her senses. The clip went viral in Thailand and racked up millions of views. Just what is it we're looking at here? Well, this aired on a local news station in Pueblo, Colorado, and the anchors were genuinely confused, as were a lot of people watching, as to what they were looking at. It's some weird looking animal with patchy black fur, a reddish face, and long skinny arms hunched over eating something off the ground. Apparently the woman who filmed the creature had actually seen it once before, but she had no idea what it was either. Other than an animal with mange, the word chupacabra was thrown around a lot. Well, later on, Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials looked into it and said the animal was probably a raccoon with mange. Mange is a skin disease that can cause animals to lose most of their fur and look pretty rough. I mean, you take the cutest furry animal on Earth, shave all its hair off, and it looks pretty damn freaky. This image here was shared on news stations all over the world. Nobody knew what the hell this thing was when news first broke, and nobody knows what it is now, but it's since become known as the unidentified Amarillo object. In 2022, the Amarillo Zoo in Texas got a lot of attention after they shared a strange image caught on their security cameras. The picture was taken at 1:25 a.m. by a motion detecting camera, showing a bizarre figure walking just outside the zoo fence. And what's creepy is that it's walking on two legs. Clearly though, this is not a person, unless they're wearing a costume, which is an odd thing to be doing at 1:30 in the morning, skulking around a zoo. When the zoo posted the image on Twitter, they leaned into the mystery, asking, is it a person with a strange hat who likes to walk at night, a chupacabra? Do you have any ideas of what this UAO, unidentified Amarillo object, could be? The zoo never outright claimed it was anything supernatural or like a cryptid or anything, but they didn't offer up any solid explanations either, because they didn't have one. Now, could this have been a weird marketing stunt? Maybe, but city officials and the zoo's director, Michael Kashuba, insisted the photo was not staged. And 3 years later, we still don't have any solid answers. What you're seeing here is news coverage in Laos of a mysterious phenomenon known as the Naga fireballs. Every year in late October, crowds gather along the Mekong River in Thailand to watch red balls of light float up from the water and then vanish into the night sky. They're called Naga fireballs, and locals say they're caused by a giant serpent spirit that lives in the river. The orbs don't make any noise, they come out of nowhere and they rise fast, sometimes hundreds in one night. There's been a lot of debate about what's really going on here. A Thai documentary once claimed it was just tracer rounds being fired by soldiers across the river in Laos. Others have blamed flare guns or some kind of flammable gas bubbling up from the riverbed, like methane or phosphine, but none of those explanations totally hold up. The balls don't behave like flares, and scientists pointed out that the conditions needed for gas bubbles to ignite like that don't really line up. In 2021, during a strict curfew, officials made sure there were no people out with flares, and the fireballs still showed up. This footage was taken in downtown Milwaukee in 2018 during a live broadcast. The news anchors had no idea what they were looking at. Fireworks? Aliens? They joked. It's very strange. This doesn't even look like your typical UAP footage. These things aren't moving in any sort of recognizable pattern. They're just floating in every which direction. They almost look like ghosts zipping through the air than any artificial object. And there are so many of them. It's really cool, but if I saw this in person, I'd be pretty unsettled. What do you all think of this one? If someone could enlighten me as to what this could be, please share your thoughts down below. This next one comes from a 2017 episode of the British talk show This Morning, featuring a couple and their possessed doll. The chair it sat on started to rock on its own several times throughout the interview.
That chair's beginning to rock. Look at that.
Who's doing that? Stop it.
The owner said that she and her husband had been walking by an antique store when they spotted a few old-looking talking dolls. The couple decided to buy a few of them because they were cheap and figured they might be able to flip them for more. Well, as soon as the dolls came home with them, strange things started to happen. They had one doll, the one they brought to the TV studio, sitting on the dresser in their room. Well, one morning the husband got up, hopped in the shower, and then suddenly felt this burning sensation on his leg.
And I looked down and there was a lot of scratches all over my knee.
They put the doll in their shed inside a plastic bin. Well, a couple days later, the wife went in and opened the bin, only to find that somehow the doll's necklace had been removed, even though it had been wrapped up tightly on the doll initially. And that night she woke up at 2 a.m. hearing this whooshing noise moving past the bed, almost like the rustling of clothing, or more specifically, a dress. There was nothing there. They ended up selling the doll. Did Pope Francis vanish into thin air on live TV? This was filmed back in April of 2020. The Pope showed up at the window above St. Peter's Square to bless people affected by the pandemic. Then he turned around and walked back inside, only before he was out of camera range, he suddenly just vanishes. You don't see him slowly disappear into the shadows. He's just there 1 second, then he's not. It's pretty bizarre. It's hard to find the original news segment online too, because it was taken down for some reason. In 2010, a Jamaican news station covered a story about a boy who claimed that he was being haunted by a duppy, basically a ghost. And the news team captured two strange incidents on camera. First, the boy is sitting in a chair talking about the strange experiences when all of a sudden he flies backward, as if something is pulling him. Then later in the segment, the boy claims to see the spirit standing close by watching him, and then he gets pulled again. At least that's what it looks like. Now, notice how one of his legs is in the air as he continues to move backward. And then when his mom grabs him, his legs flip around like they're being grabbed at by someone, only we can't actually see anyone. It could be faked, but it is a damn good performance by this kid if it is. Alright, so at first glance, this just looks like some streaker running around a soccer field. If you're watching casually, you might even laugh it off, but the longer you watch, the weirder this footage is. This figure shows up from multiple camera angles, dashing through the crowd and along the edge of the field, and nobody reacts, at all. No one turns their head, no one flinches, it's like they don't even see it. Then you notice this thing doesn't look fully solid, it's kind of see-through. There's a moment where it looks like it passes right through a group of people. Plus, this person actually ends up on the field, and if you know anything about stadium security, you know the second someone who's not meant to be there steps foot on the grass, they're getting tackled and dragged off. But here, nothing happens.
Imagine watching a live news report and suddenly the reporter's words turn into total gibberish. That's exactly what happened during a CBS Los Angeles broadcast from the 2011 Grammy Awards. Viewers were stunned when reporter Serene Branson went from speaking normally to uttering a string of nonsensical sounds on live TV.
Well, a very, very heavy divertation tonight. We had a very Darrison.
She visibly panicked as she realized something was wrong, leading many to fear that she was having a stroke on air. Paramedics rushed to examine her, and thankfully, her vital signs were normal. It turned out Serene had suffered a complex migraine that mimicked stroke-like symptoms, causing sudden aphasia or speech impairment. In other words, her brain glitched, scrambling her speech. The clip went viral as a real-life Matrix moment, a healthy young reporter seemingly malfunctioning without warning. It was a scary sight, but also a relief when we learned it wasn't a true stroke. Still, for a few seconds of live TV, it felt like reality itself had briefly broken down. A famous weatherman suddenly freezes like an NPC caught in lag. On the Today Show in 2012, co-hosts Savannah Guthrie and Matt Lauer finished a silly dance joking about leaving room for the Holy Ghost between dance partners. That's when Al Roker, the beloved NBC weatherman, did the unthinkable. He stared directly into the camera, motionless with a goofy grin for a full 17 seconds. He didn't blink, didn't move a muscle. It was as if someone hit the pause button on Al Roker. Roker later explained that it was a bit of deadpan humor, essentially a brain freeze challenge he did on purpose. The show's director egged him on to see how long he could hold the pose, and Al committed to the bit. Even so, watching it back, many viewers felt a chill. The moment looked so uncanny that it's now a classic glitch in the Matrix clip. During a live soccer match, a shadow person sprinted through the stands and no one can agree if it was a glitch, a ghost, or just a camera trick. This incident happened at a stadium in La Paz, Bolivia, during a Fox Sports broadcast in 2014. In the footage, you see a dark, human-shaped figure running rapidly across the lower tier seats, straight through the crowd, yet no one in the audience seems to react to it. Viewers at home were creeped out. Was it a ghost caught on live TV? Rational explanations soon emerged. Lighting snafu or video artifact, basically a technical glitch that made a real person's image smear across the screen. But that hasn't stopped wild theories. The clip went viral, with some saying the stadium is haunted or that we witnessed a Matrix running program acting up. What's freakier than one person glitching? How about two people glitching together? Twin sisters Paula and Bridget Powers from Australia gave an interview that left viewers' jaws on the floor. They were recounting a dramatic carjacking incident involving their mother, but it wasn't the story that stole the show, it was how they told it. The twins spoke in a mesmerizing stereo, often saying the exact same words at the exact same time during the live interview.
So we drop everything and we went running out the front. We seen Mum running out from the house up there.
At times, one twin would start a sentence and the other would finish it in perfect sync, as if they shared one mind. The effect was so uncanny that the clip went viral worldwide, and even Jimmy Kimmel invited them on his show out of sheer fascination. The sisters themselves just laughed it off, saying their brains think alike at the same time after a lifetime together. Indeed, Paula and Bridget have spent 51 years dressing alike, working together, and practically living in parallel. So, while it seems paranormal, it's likely just an extraordinary sibling bond.
Back in 2014, ABC7 covered a story about a strange creature captured by a couple in South Texas. Jackie Stocks told the news crew that her husband spotted a weird creature in the yard eating corn. The husband said he'd hunted raccoons and said he'd never heard one growl like this before.
Harma says one of the big signs it's not a raccoon is its growl.
Now, they also interviewed an apparent wildlife expert who looked at footage of the strange animal and said it was probably a canine with mange. Thing is, canines do not use their hands the way this thing does. I mean, have you ever seen your dog eat like this? I didn't think so. Wildlife expert? Maybe go get a new career? I don't know. This footage was shown on One Indian News a few years ago. In Jharkhand, a group of bikers were riding along late at night when they saw this person walking along the side of the road. The video is pretty grainy, but you can still make out the figure. It looks pale, extremely thin, and moves in this weird, unnatural way. It doesn't seem to move its arms. It's like that character in Seinfeld that doesn't move when they walk. When it turns its head, it also seems to have these glowing yellowish eyes. So people online started commenting that this thing looked a lot like an alien. Of course, no one knows for sure what the bikers caught on camera, but whatever it is, I would be very uncomfortable seeing it anywhere at any time, let alone a rural road in the middle of the night. Back in 2019, 9 News Australia ran a story about a pub called the Tyler's Kiln. The pub is owned by a man named Alistair Collins, who's pretty convinced that the place is haunted. Collins had a whole collection of late-night security footage showing some really odd stuff happening after hours. Chairs are seen sliding out from tables all by themselves. Umbrellas suddenly pop open with no one around, and doors slam shut even though the place is completely empty. One of the news anchors even tried to recreate the chair moving like it did in the footage, but he couldn't really pull it off. The ground is just too uneven to smoothly drag the chair like that, and setting up a string or some trick would have been pretty tough without showing up on camera. They also tested how the umbrella could have opened on its own and figured it would have been nearly impossible to pull off without someone being caught in the frame. The creepiest story probably came from an electrician who was working there during some renovations. He heard small doors swinging near the kitchen and loud footsteps heading upstairs. He thought the only other person in the building had, of course, gone upstairs, but when he called out, said person came walking out of the kitchen right in front of him. So what was going on up there? Well, they went upstairs to check, and no one was there. The whole top floor was completely empty. I love stories like that. This next piece of footage still gets shared around online from time to time. Back in 2016, something strange happened during a Sky Sports broadcast. After a game, pundits Jamie Carragher and Phil Neville were chatting about the match, as sports commentators do, but eagle-eyed viewers at home noticed something weird in the background. There was a shadowy figure moving across the empty field. At first, it just looked like a regular groundskeeper doing cleanup, pushing equipment across the grass, but then the dude just vanishes. Viewers immediately jumped online to talk about what they saw. One person wrote, "Did anyone else notice the ghost groundsman?" Another said, "Monday Night Football, keep an eye out. There's an effing ghost groundsman in the Northeast." And someone else joked, "Ghost groundsman at the Stadium of Light. The ground needs an exorcism." No one from Sky Sports or the stadium ever confirmed what it actually was, and the pundits never addressed it. In 2005, ABC 13 Action News in Las Vegas covered a man named Ramon Watkins, who referred to himself as Prophet Yahweh. He claimed that he could summon UFOs just by praying, and said he would prove it live on camera. Well, ABC sent a reporter, Mike Dello Stritto, and a cameraman to meet him near Lake Mead. The prophet prayed, and within moments, something strange appeared in the sky. It was two bright spherical objects, hovering and slowly moving in the distance. The cameraman caught them clearly on video as they floated across the sky. The footage aired live, and people who were watching could see it happen in real time. This wasn't a quick flash or something easily dismissed. It stayed visible long enough for everyone to focus on it. Prophet Yahweh said he heard a voice in his head telling him when the UFOs would appear and where to look. But was this really the case? I mean, that is obviously very hard to believe. Could the objects have been balloons, drones, aircraft? Maybe, but they didn't seem to move like any of those things. The ABC crew didn't offer an explanation, and the event still gets passed around online with no solid answer for what actually showed up in the sky that day. On August 5th, 2009, during a live morning news broadcast on BBC Northeast, anchor Colin Briggs was delivering the day's stories when something strange appeared on the screen behind him. It was this wide shot of the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle, coming from the BBC's live webcam feed. Suddenly, this white streak of light zips across the frame, not falling downward, but shooting further into the sky before disappearing. The object was fast moving, but clear enough that viewers noticed, and people started recording it from their televisions and quickly shared the clips online. Some said it was a bird, a toy plane, but it doesn't really look like either of those things to me, and it didn't to Nick Pope, who is a former UK Ministry of Defence UFO investigator. He reviewed the slowdown footage and said it didn't look like a bird and that the movement was genuinely strange. The BBC later did a follow-up asking for viewer opinions, but never provided a final answer or any definitive explanation for what happened. On February 11th, 2013, during an afternoon broadcast on KRTV in Great Falls, Montana, during an episode of the Steve Wilkos Show, the emergency alert system suddenly cut in. Thank God, everyone said. Why was I watching the Steve Wilkos Show? Suddenly, though, viewers heard this voice calmly announce that the, quote, bodies of the dead are rising from their graves and attacking the living.
Civil authorities in your area have reported that the bodies of the dead are rising from their graves and attacking the living.
The message warned people not to approach these zombies and to wait for further instructions. It sounded pretty official and used the same tones and format as real emergency alerts. Within hours, similar hoax messages interrupted TV stations in Michigan, Wisconsin, and New Mexico. Even more strange, 2 days later, a radio station in La Crosse, Wisconsin played a recording of the hoax alert and accidentally triggered the EAS again, rebroadcasting the zombie warning to viewers who thought it was happening all over again. Investigators later confirmed that hackers had exploited a weak security on on the emergency broadcast equipment, in many cases using default passwords that were still active. The hackers were eventually caught, but as for how exactly they did this, that's never been disclosed, probably for obvious reasons. On January 3rd, 2007, people in Australia were watching Mayday Head-On Collision, a documentary about air travel disasters, when something very weird happened. In the middle of the broadcast on Channel 7, the original audio suddenly cut out and was replaced with a looping clip from an old news story about a Halliburton convoy ambush.
Lord, Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord. Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord.
The audio was just a truck driver named Preston Wheeler screaming, "Jesus Christ, help us all, Lord," over and over. The audio kept repeating that same line for 5 solid minutes while the visuals from the documentary kept playing. Nobody knew how this happened. One viewer said he kept calling the station while it was happening, but no one answered the phones. There was no follow-up, no investigation. Channel 7 just brushed it off and moved on. This one is very eerie though. On October 2nd, 2014, Colette Provencher was delivering a live weather report on TVA News from the rooftop of the network's building in Montreal. As she talked, a bright green orb floated across the sky behind her. She didn't notice anything at the time, but viewers definitely did. The footage spread online and people started arguing about what the glowing object actually was. Some said it was just a meteor. Others pointed out that the object looked way too big and wasn't moving like a typical shooting star. It also seemed to slow down mid-flight, which doesn't make sense for a meteor. The orb stayed visible for several seconds and didn't burn out like you'd expect. What are we looking at here? Good question. This clip was posted to Reddit by user Steve90,000, who wrote that on December 13th, 2024 at 5 p.m., ABC News caught an orb on video when in New Jersey investigating the drone situation. At the time, tons of people were spotting UAPs over the state. So what you're looking at here is just one of them. As for what it actually was, we still don't know.
Viewers thought they spotted a shape-shifting reptilian on the news, but the truth was more technological. In an old CTV news clip that resurfaced online, a female reporter delivers the headlines when suddenly her eyes appear to glitch. During a blink, her eyes don't look human for a split second. They seem fixed and glazed over, almost like a doll's or a computer-rendered image. Experts explained that it was a rolling screen repaint artifact from the broadcast. Basically, this was an analog TV signal glitch. On old antenna TV, if the signal degrades at the wrong moment, in this case when she blinked, part of the previous frame's data can briefly hold on for a second. The result? Her eyes open from a prior frame overlaid on her face while blinking, creating a creepy illusion that her eyes blinked but didn't close? Technical or not, it looked really freaky, like an NPC in a video game failing to load its textures. Even after hearing the explanation, some joked, "Sure, that's what they want you to believe." This one isn't a glitch in the video, it's a glitch in the broadcast itself, and it's straight up like something out of a techno thriller. In November 1987, Chicago sportscaster Dan Roan was doing the nightly news when suddenly the signal hijacked. TV screens went black for a second, and then viewers were suddenly staring at a bizarre figure. Someone in a Max Headroom mask bobbing around in front of a swiveling metal background. No sound, just 30 seconds of this super creepy masked intruder. Engineers managed to regain control on that channel, but it wasn't over. About 2 hours later, during a Doctor Who episode on another station, Max Headroom hacker struck again, this time with audio. The masked person spoke in distorted garbles, laughed, moaned, even exposed their bare behind to the camera while being spanked with a fly swatter. Yeah, it was really weird. After about 90 seconds, the pirate broadcast ended. Viewers and station officials were completely baffled. Who was that? How did they break into major TV station signals? The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation, but to this day, the culprits have still never been caught or identified. Even decades later, watching the Max Headroom incident on YouTube will give you a serious case of the heebie-jeebies. Somebody has the chance to have the best deathbed confession of all time. Imagine your grandfather, you're saying your final goodbyes, and he's like, "I was Max Headroom." That would be crazy. When a news crew went looking for ghost stories, they might have gotten more than they bargained for. In 2021, WNYT News Channel 13 in upstate New York did a live report from the Green Ridge Cemetery as part of a Halloween segment. Reporter Sam Hessler was on air in the pre-dawn hours, walking among the tombstones while a guide shared spooky historical tales. The broadcast went smoothly until viewers at home noticed something on their screens that even the crew on site missed. In the background, behind Sam, a misty white figure seemed to drift between the graves. It was brief and subtle, a flicker of what looked like a person or a fog moving fast. After the live shot, one astonished viewer alerted the station, and Sam herself was stunned reviewing the footage. She hadn't seen anything in person. WNYT later acknowledged the eerie moment, assuring folks the clip was unedited and truly aired live. The internet, of course, lit up with ghost caught on live TV posts and theories. Some paranormal enthusiasts called it one of the best accidental ghost sightings on a news broadcast, evidence of a spirit roaming the cemetery. Skeptics countered that it could have been a camera glitch, a passing car's headlights reflecting, or even a stray piece of insect or dust close to the lens creating a blur. The station's own write-up teased it as something almost too crazy to be real and encouraged viewers to watch and decide for themselves. You're watching HGTV and suddenly an emergency alert pops up warning that the end of the world is here. What do? That nightmare scenario actually happened to some TV viewers in Southern California in September 2017. Without warning, regular programming was interrupted by the emergency alert system. The typical alert banner scrolled, but then things got truly terrifying. A booming male voice came on and proclaimed, "Realize this, that in the last days extremely violent times will come." Imagine hearing that out of the blue on a Thursday morning and you're just trying to love it or list it. Understandably, people freaked out. It sounded like a prophecy of an imminent apocalypse or some wartime broadcast. As dramatic as it was, this turned out not to be the work of pranksters or an alien overlord, but simply a technical glitch and incredibly bad timing during a routine test of the emergency alert system. In short, the system glitched out and aired a fire and brimstone sermon by mistake. Cox and Spectrum cable customers heard what sounded like a doomsday warning, but it was just Pastor Chuck Swindoll quoting the Bible, 2 Timothy 3:1, on an FM station. Both the cable company and the FCC confirmed it was an error, not a hack, but not before scaring the heck out of viewers. In the middle of a live US Congress debate, viewers suddenly saw something Russian. In January 2017, politics junkies watching a C-SPAN online feed got a strange surprise. The feed, which was showing a live House of Representatives session, abruptly switched to Russia Today, the Kremlin-funded news channel, for about 10 minutes. Given that this occurred amid intense news about Russian cyber interference, many thought C-SPAN had been hacked by Russians in real time. C-SPAN quickly investigated and put out a statement. They didn't believe it was a hack, but rather a routing technical error. The leading theory is that some glitch caused the RT feed to literally overlap and replace the C-SPAN feed on their site. In simulation terms, it's like two different programs momentarily cross-wired. The timing, however, was almost comical. It happened just hours after a power outage oddly halted a Senate hearing about Russian hacking. Even Waters, whose speech was interrupted, remarked on the curious timing and demanded a clear explanation. Seeing Moscow news pop up in a US government broadcast felt like a scene from a spy movie, or a reminder that the simulation has a twisted sense of humor. Our final glitch was literally one word caught in an endless loop, and of course, that word was Russia. Also in January 2017, I guess a bad month for TV gremlins, MSNBC's show Hardball experienced a freaky moment. Journalist Dave Ignatius was talking to host Chris Matthews about, ironically, Russian interference in US politics. He said the word Russia and bang. The screen flickered and started repeating Russia, Russia, Russia over and over in a feedback loop. Chris Matthews looked confused as the glitch kept going for several seconds. seconds, echoing Russia in a creepy cadence until the control room cut to commercial. Given the climate at the time, Twitter exploded with jokes that Moscow hackers or the Kremlin Matrix had struck again, but most likely this was just a bizarre technical malfunction. Perhaps a failing satellite feed or encoding error that caused a few seconds of audio/video to loop. The fact it looped that particular word on that particular topic, well, that was gold for conspiracy lovers and also late-night comedians. MSNBC assured it wasn't intentional and nothing nefarious was found. If we do live in a simulation, it definitely has a flair for dramatic irony.
This right here is what's known as one of the most radioactive areas of Chernobyl. That's saying a lot. After the explosion in 1986, a lot of the melted core material ended up pooling underneath the plant. One of the most dangerous things left behind is what's now known as the elephant's foot, this giant solid mass of radioactive goo made up of melted nuclear fuel, metal, sand, and concrete. It got the name because of the way it looks, like a huge wrinkled lump. It kind of looks like elephant skin. At the time it formed, it was extremely radioactive. Just standing near it for a few minutes back then would have killed you. Photos were taken by bouncing cameras off mirrors so that no one had to get too close. The surface was so hot that it was physically burning through the floors. These days it's cooled down a lot and it's not instantly lethal anymore, but it's still dangerously radioactive and it's locked away deep inside the ruins of the plant. This is footage of one of the reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant exploding. So on March 11th, 2011, there was a massive 9.0 earthquake off the coast of Japan. This caused a giant tsunami which hit the power plant. The plant was designed to shut down automatically during emergencies like earthquakes, but the tsunami flooded the backup generators, which were supposed to keep the reactors cool. And with no power, the cooling system failed, and over the next few hours, the reactors started to overheat. The pressure built up, and 3 of the reactors went into full meltdown. Hydrogen gas built up inside the reactors, and eventually it exploded, sending radioactive material into the air. The fallout spread to nearby towns, and thousands had to evacuate. The ocean got contaminated as well. And on top of that, there were more nuclear emergencies, including a radioactive leak into a wastewater storage pool. Cleanup is still happening. It could take more than 40 years to fully decommission the plant. While the reactors have been shut down, the area around Fukushima is still heavily contaminated. Large parts are still off limits. This is footage of workers cleaning up radioactive sludge from the K East Basin. The K East Basin was a large pool at the Hanford site in Washington, D.C. It stored used nuclear fuel from a reactor called the N reactor. It was built in the 50s close to the Columbia River, which made it risky if anything leaked. Well, over time, the fuel started to break down, creating a thick radioactive sludge at the bottom of the pool. The basin became heavily contaminated, and it was getting concerning, so the US Department of Energy decided that it needed to be cleaned up. Workers removed the fuel and sludge over the course of years. Once the cleanup was done, they drained the water and filled the basin with grout to prevent anything left inside from spreading. These workers were vacuuming about 55 cubic yards of radioactive ooze. They stood on grates suspended above the 20-foot deep basin and used vacuuming equipment at the end of long poles. You'll notice there are also shots from the underwater cameras that they used to help guide their work. This is drone footage of Pripyat, a place that's been frozen in time ever since the Chernobyl disaster in '86. This town, once home to workers at the nuclear plant, was evacuated within 36 hours of the meltdown, and people left everything behind. The streets are now empty, the buildings are decaying, and nature is slowly covering the area. As you can see, this footage is kinda eerie. The abandoned buildings, the rusted playgrounds, the iconic Ferris wheel. It looks like a set from The Walking Dead. As cold and quiet as the place is, though, radiation is still very much a problem here, and most of the town is off limits. What you're looking at here is just one of the many nuclear explosions at a test site called Semipalatinsk in what is now Kazakhstan. The Semipalatinsk test site was one of the most active places for nuclear weapons testing during the Cold War. Between 1949 and 1989, the Soviet Union conducted over 450 nuclear tests here. This made it one of the most radioactive places in the world. The tests were kept secret from the public for years, but the long-term effects are still being felt to this day. People living nearby have suffered from higher rates of cancer and more birth defects, and the environment's been permanently damaged. The site was abandoned after the Soviet Union fell, but to this day, radiation levels are still very dangerous in some parts. Now we have this gray mound of rock near Weldon Spring, Missouri. It doesn't look all that interesting, but the backstory is pretty nuts. During World War II, the site was used to produce explosives. Then in the 50s and 60s, uranium was enriched for nuclear weapons at the facility. The problem was, when the operation shut down in the late 60s, they didn't really clean up. There were piles of uranium and radium, TNT, and asbestos left behind. It was just this giant toxic mess. If someone were to fall into it, they'd end up like that dude in RoboCop. So, to deal with it, the government decided to cover it all up. Not in a conspiratorial sense, I mean literally just cover it up. They built a giant hill to seal in all the radioactive waste and chemical debris. This mound is now called the Weldon Springs Site Remedial Action Project Disposal Cell, but locals have just nicknamed it the Nuclear Waste Adventure Trail. Today, people can visit the site, climb to the top of the mound, and get a view of the surrounding area. There's really not much to see other than grass out in the distance, but I guess it's cool to stand on. The hill is used by birdwatchers as well, and amateur astronomers who just like looking at the clear skies at night. I can't say that this would be my go-to spot on like a pleasant nature walk. I get that it's supposedly totally safe now, but I don't know, I still wouldn't want to spend too much time in a place like this. According to one former security guard though, they spent years working at the site without any major health problems. Still, it's a pretty weird spot for a tourist attraction. On April 27th, 1986, HBO viewers were watching The Falcon and the Snowman when their screens suddenly cut to black, and for about 5 minutes, a message appeared in bright white text on a color test pattern that read, "Good evening HBO from Captain Midnight. $12.95 a month? No way." The broadcast had been hijacked. The person behind it was John R. McDougall, a satellite engineer who was frustrated with HBO's pricing, which he felt was unfair to satellite dish owners who had to pay monthly fees for content that used to be free. McDougall later admitted that he'd used his own satellite equipment at a Florida transmission site to briefly override HBO's signal. He knew exactly how to aim his dish and transmit at just the right frequency to cut into their feed. Authorities launched an investigation, and within a few months, he was caught. He was fined and given probation, so yeah, the guy was identified, but I just had to bring this one up. The fact that this guy successfully interrupted one of the largest cable networks without immediate detection is pretty nuts. This is one of the most high-profile broadcast intrusions in US history. In 2021, Sam Hessler, a reporter for CBS 6, was doing a live morning segment from Greenbridge Cemetery in Saratoga County, New York. At the time, everything seemed perfectly normal. Nobody on set noticed anything unusual. It wasn't until later that day when a viewer contacted the station saying they'd seen something strange walking behind her during the broadcast. When the news team went back to review the footage, they spotted it too. Some sort of figure crossing the background. It almost looked like it appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The clip got passed around and people slowed it down to try and figure out what it was. In the slowed version, you can clearly see a shadowy form moving across the screen. Now, Greenridge Cemetery already has a bit of a spooky reputation. There have been stories of eerie things there over the years. You can imagine the details. Nothing super out of the ordinary for a cemetery. But to have something captured on live television like this, that hits a little different. The reptilian conspiracy is one of the more out there theories floating around, but somehow it's got a pretty big following, partly thanks to supposed footage of it. The idea is that some of the world's most powerful people, your politicians, singers, actors, that they're not actually human, that they're instead these shape-shifting reptilian creatures wearing human skin suits as a disguise while secretly pulling the strings behind all the world's biggest decisions. What's kept this conspiracy alive for so long is what some claim to be video evidence. Over the years, live TV has supposedly caught these lizard people slipping up. There are clips of news anchors and politicians where their pupils briefly look like vertical slits instead of round human eyes. Sometimes their faces seem to glitch, momentarily revealing what looks like snake-like patches of skin underneath. Plenty of people have slowed these clips down, zoomed in, and picked apart the footage frame by frame, and then posted top 10 lists online talking about it. Well, I gotta talk about it. I know it, you know it, but that's because this is the wildest live broadcast hack in history, the Max Headroom incident, still unsolved. On November 22nd, 1987, on the evening news on WGN in Chicago, the screen suddenly cut to a man wearing a Max Headroom mask, a character from a TV show around that time. The man didn't say anything at first, he just stood there as this background behind him was spinning around, making strange movements, and you also hear a bit of a buzzing noise. The station quickly cut the feed, got back to the news. It only lasted about 20 seconds, but that wasn't the end of it. Just 2 hours later, during a broadcast of Doctor Who on the local PBS station, the same masked man took over again, and this time he started talking, mumbling phrases that made no sense, mocking TV personalities, even getting spanked with a fly swatter by someone off camera. It's a mix of emotions watching this footage. It's undoubtedly eerie, but you can't say there isn't humor in this too. The whole thing lasted about 90 seconds before the station finally managed to cut him off. The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation, but they never caught the person responsible. To this day, no one knows who did it or exactly how they pulled it off. Why even? Breaking into live broadcasts like this is not easy.
Coming in at number 10 is Let Me In. Now, Mandy set up Ring cameras around her rural property to capture footage of the wildlife, but when the mom of two was out with her family one night, she got a notification about movement near her back door. When she looked at the footage, she noticed a shadow before someone loudly whispers the words, "Let me in." There is then rapid scratching as if someone is trying to enter her home. Now, terrified by the encounter, she started closely monitoring her cameras, and when she found more footage of a figure lurking near her back shed, and then another night a cloaked person slowly walked up to her backyard, staring up at her house. Now, in the first clip, a strange figure walks into the corner of the frame and lingers near Mandy's back shed before leaving. In the second clip, the person makes her way into the backyard and stands just a meter from the back steps, near where Mandy was tending to her sick baby inside. "We notified authorities, but this is making me feel angry, confused, and concerned," she said. Now, Mandy went on to explain that she had now added extra security cameras with floodlights, and that the US couple are now armed in order to protect their family from any future trespassers. Now, people were incredibly disturbed by the footage Mandy had captured, saying they believed the first one to be a spirit, but the second one to be an actual person messing with the family. Yeah, I think they need to move ASAP. Number 9. Are you sure? Now, this footage scares me to my core. It shows a man approaching a house and repeatedly knocking on the door while repeating, "I just have a couple questions for you. Are you sure?" Now, this goes on for a couple of minutes before a man responds over the Ring doorbell. At this point, the footage turns all the more unsettling as the man at the door says he wants to take advantage of and end the life of the woman inside the house. Now, the footage was shared by Amanda Nowak of Las Vegas, and according to Amanda, she was inside the house hiding during the entire encounter. Now, the man never saw her and was never actually speaking directly to her in the tense 3 minutes, and thankfully the man has been arrested, but that doesn't make the footage any less unnerving. Number 8. Past homeowner. Apparently, if your family owned a property decades ago and sold it, that still means it's yours. Well, at least according to Judy Klein. Since January 2022, she has been harassing a Mexican family in St. Louis, Missouri, accusing them of being in the country illegally. Over several incidents, Judy had broken into their basement, damaged items, racially his family and threatened them with a hammer. It wasn't until ring footage of her shouting obscenities on the family's doorstep was put online that the authorities took things more seriously. In the past year, Judy had reportedly only been taken into custody temporarily, which is why she kept coming back. In February 2023, Judy was arrested on several charges, including burglary and using a weapon. In June, she gained another offense with interference of housing rights, and now she's also banned from being near or contacting the family. Number 7. The Masked Man. Finding a masked man at your front door in the middle of the night can be pretty scary, but when that man returns to your home 3 times in 1 week, it's downright frightening, a blogger for Ring explains. Now they said that because that's exactly what happened to a family in Milford, Connecticut. After just a couple of days into their vacation, where they were more than 100 miles away from their home, Ring alerted them that a masked man was at their front door. Though he couldn't break in, he returned a few days later. Now despite the family sending the videos to police and local news stations, the man returned again. This time, however, he was arrested, and thank God, because who knows what he would have tried to do. Number 6. Poison. A man who lived below a family in Florida got fed up with hearing noises from above him and felt that his complaints were not being heard, so he tried to poison them, and it was caught on camera. Umar Abdullah, his pregnant wife, and their young daughter moved into the apartment complex in June 2022. The man below them soon began sending angry texts to his new neighbors, complaining that he was losing sleep over the sound of a toilet seat clanging. Soon after, the family suddenly began experiencing unexplained bouts of nausea and dizziness. A family friend first noticed a chemical odor while grabbing a package for them while they were away on vacation. Umar then also noticed the scent and suspected an issue with his water heater. However, the stench persisted even after he replaced the appliance and had his air ducts and vents cleaned. Now desperate for resolution, he called the fire department, who conducted tests but found nothing amiss. Now he eventually noticed a small crack in his doorway and began to suspect his neighbor. After falling ill yet again, he set up a hidden camera outside his door and was shocked to see his neighbor crouching down and emptying a syringe under his front door. The man used a laboratory on the University of South Florida campus to mix and load liquid syringes on multiple occasions with the intent to harm residents of the condominium. He was then arrested on June 27th, and a hazmat team revealed the liquid chemical agent contained a combination of methadone and hydrocodone, both opiate pain medications. Now word of the shocking poisoning sent other residents of the Oxford Place at Tampa Palms into a state of panic, and according to a suit, they seek to kick out the man and his co-owner roommate from the complex.
This one's pretty classic. Nothing is more classically ghost movie than a rocking chair rocking on its own. In a small child's bedroom, no less. Joking aside though, if I saw this at that age, I'd be mortified. Hell, if I saw it now, I'd be out of there too. Luckily, Dad comes in to pull her out of there. Now, someone in the comments said this may have been an earthquake, but I don't see anything else in the room shaking, and the camera is completely still as well. So, I don't know, that seems unlikely, but I also haven't experienced any serious earthquakes, so y'all have to let me know in the comments what you think about this one. I always like a good creepy rake video. Shared to Instagram by StephenLye86, this video starts with a young girl telling her dad that there's someone lurking in the trees by their property. Dad sees the figure just beyond the tree line and calls out to them.
Hey! What are you doing over there?
As he zooms in to get a better look though, we realize that the thing may not be a person at all. It doesn't look like one. It's shaped like some sort of, I don't even know what. It's pale white, tall and slender, and its arms look to be longer than its legs. He moves toward the trees to see what's going on, but the thing, whatever it is nowhere to be seen. What do you all think of this one? Genuine creature caught on camera, or is this one just a hoax? Reddit user Goffin to the Coffin captured some very unsettling audio on her sleep cycle app. She wrote, I use Sleep Cycle to monitor my sleep, and I've done for over 1,000 nights. This is the first time I've heard anything, let's say, odd. I'm a single 25-year-old female. Nobody else was in the flat with me. My bedroom window is open, but from the sound of the birds in the background and other instances where the app has picked up talking outside, this is close. Even when I'm mumbling in my sleep, this sounds closer. To me, it sounds like it's saying you 3 times before there's movement when I start waking up. I think it's super weird and cool. Well, let's take a listen for ourselves, shall we? No, that is not cool. That is the opposite of cool. I wouldn't be cool with that. Doesn't sound like the voice is saying you, by the way. Sounds like it's saying kill. Reddit user Brat2299 shared this image to Reddit. Notice anything strange about it? Let's zoom in a bit. Just what the hell is that? Can't be anything good, that's for sure. That's not a face that screams friendly. It's a face that screams Michael Myers, the slasher villain, not the beloved comedian. I mean, if I saw Mike Myers appear in the reflection of a picture frame in my home, I'd be a bit alarmed, confused for sure, not terrified. I'd probably just be worried that he died and was paying his fans a final visit. But the ghostly image of Michael Myers' mask, that's a lot less welcoming. In 2019, a group of real estate investors in Philadelphia were checking out an old house they bought to renovate. The place looked like the usual kind of rundown, dusty, dark, creepy, but nothing out of the ordinary at first. Then one of them noticed something weird near the staircase, a thin string stretching across the steps, barely visible. So they all took a step back and one of them prodded at the stairs with a long block of wood. And that's when this happened. The stairs were clearly booby-trapped, tripped the wire, and a crutch with a blade attached comes swinging down, likely right into your face. Luckily, these guys had done this kind of thing before. If they hadn't spotted it though, horrific. No one knows who set it up or why, but it does go to show exploring abandoned buildings might look cool online, but sometimes there's more waiting for you than just ghostly activity. I'd take that over this any day of the week. This one brought back pleasant childhood memories of running upstairs from my basement thinking I'd heard or seen something, only this kid may not have been imagining things. So he walks into the kitchen and you gotta listen really closely, but as he walks in you hear this female voice say, "How did you find me?" Take a listen. Now, there wasn't anyone in the house other than him and his mom and his brothers, but they were all upstairs, hence the utter terror and panic. Now, whether you believe something paranormal was going on or not, I mean, this kid's reaction is 100% authentic. I mean, at least I'm 99.999% sure. And this only continues because the mom described what happened after. She said he came bolting into her room screaming and crying about hearing the voice, which he said came from the cabinets. He said someone was definitely in the house and then things got worse.
Somebody was in the house, and I'm like, and he finally did get a little bit quiet. We started hearing footsteps. I mean, big heavy feet coming up the steps.
So after hearing these loud footsteps, mom goes searching the house, but she finds nothing. So you ready to cringe so hard you pop some blood vessels? Check this out.
I know you're in there. Let me in, Daddy.
Ugh. Daddy let me in. And now, you know what? I don't think that's actually the homeowner's son. Daddy, though. That's a word that's really morphed into something else, isn't it? I don't think that word will ever be normal again. Admittedly, this video does feel more Florida-ish than Ohio, but I saw it and I just knew I had to share. I like knowing everyone else is uncomfortably groaning along with me, Really seems like having a doorbell cam is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you know if anyone's creeping onto your porch in the middle of the night, and on the other, you know who's creeping onto your porch in the middle of the night. It's like peeling back the Matrix and seeing the world for what it really is. Well, if you're not already squirming in your seat, surely you will be after this. Oh, look, it's just some sort of furry little creature curled up in a ball having a snooze. Now, always good to poke things with a stick, though, just to make sure they're alive. Were any of you expecting to see that? Ugh, that is disgusting. This clip was shared to Reddit by Luigi Hiji, and someone in the comments said, okay, but what the hell is the hairy thing? It's like they just couldn't believe, or maybe didn't want to believe, that furry thing just is all spiders. All of that. It's a huge clump. Imagine just covering your hand in something sticky and then just jamming it in there. You just come out with this giant fist of spiders. How's that for Spider-Man? From Reddit user LTibs comes the story of the ghost on the road. The Redditor wrote about how her father-in-law, who's the VP of operations at a trucking company, received a very strange video. Part of his job is reviewing dashcam footage when something goes wrong on the road, like sudden braking, swerving, and speeding. So the trucks have two cameras, one facing the driver and one facing the road. Normally, he just checks the footage to decide if a driver needs to be disciplined. But One day, he got a video that really shook him. The images you're looking at were attached to her Reddit post. Two truckers had been driving down a 2-lane road in the middle of the night. It was pitch black, and the shoulder was blocked with cones, so there was nowhere to swerve. That's when both drivers saw a woman in a white dress walking directly in their lane. As they passed, she turned and looked straight at them. Thinking they'd hit her, they slammed on the brakes and jumped out of the truck, but there was no one there. They called the cops, who also searched the area, and they didn't find anything. Later, the company dug into the location and found that in 2013, a woman had died in that exact spot after being hit by 2 cars, one of which never stopped. Internally, the company started calling it the ghost incident. No one could explain what the camera caught. Twitter user Blade E Lover, real name Conrad, was waiting for his buddy outside his place when an old woman started banging on his car. He rolled his window down a bit to see what the hell the problem was.
Can you not touch my car like that?
Can you give me a phone, please?
What?
Can you give me a phone? I want to send a text.
What a sneaky opener. Yeah, just give me your phone. I want to send a text. I love all the little plot holes in that request. Like, you want to send a text to someone, but you don't have a phone of your own? How do you even know the number you need to text? Do you know it off the top of your head? Are you going to stand around and wait with the guy till the person texts his phone back? Why not just call the supposed number? Anyway, I'm getting way too into the weeds with that one line. Doesn't really matter. It's a lie. We all know it's a lie, and it's not the scary part, so let's move on.
You don't live here?
What are you doing?
Can you get your hands off my car, please?
No.
Please.
What are you doing?
So she repeatedly asks him what he's doing, saying that she lives there, but it's his friend's place, so he knows she doesn't. Now, this is confrontational, but it's not out of hand or anything. Voices aren't raised, till they suddenly are.
I've been welcome to fucking Zimbabwe, you stupid little pimp! Get away from here!
So things escalate very quickly. Suddenly this woman turns into Bilbo trying to snatch the ring out of Frodo's hands. She says something about shipping off to Zimbabwe and that he's a stupid little pimp. Very creative little lines there, but looking at this guy's other Twitter posts, yeah, I don't think he's from Zimbabwe. I don't know where the hell that line came from.
Number 5. Standing visitor. A woman who wished to remain anonymous checked her doorbell camera to find a stranger standing outside her house and staring for a few minutes. The resident, who lives in one of the houses in the Darlings of Hart Village near Hartpool, said the incident happened at 3:15 a.m. on Monday, January 31st, 2022. She shared the alarming footage to a local community Facebook page and warned other residents to be careful. In the clip, a tall, skinny-built man in a dark-colored jacket walks to the footpath right in front of her house and stops midway. He stalls and appears to check on his phone before stepping forward again, taking a pause. Now, according to the timestamp, he stayed for about 6 minutes before he walked away from the camera. The woman said he stood there for a few minutes from 3:15 a.m. to 3:21 a.m. She added then that he disappeared for an hour, not sure where, and then he came back running from the side of her house into a car. Nothing seems to be taken, but it's just super creepy, she said. She asked her neighbors to see if they have seen the man near their houses, but they said no. But a resident replied on her Facebook page that something similar happened to them a few weeks ago. Number 4. Kidnapping. On November 12, 2019, disturbing footage of a woman screaming for help was captured from a Ring doorbell camera in Los Angeles around 11 p.m. Now, the police were not aware of the doorbell footage until the following morning, but responded to a report of a possible kidnapping. LAPD officer Mike Lopez said responding authorities could not find evidence of a crime, and after the footage came to light, the LAPD reopened their investigation. Now, the screams were thought to be coming from a white vehicle that drives down the street. A woman is heard yelling, "Somebody help me," and a witness claims she also heard a man say, "I'm sorry." Now, what's crazy about this footage though is that the neighbor comes out of her house and hears all the screaming and does absolutely nothing. The bystander effect is truly disgusting, and she could have saved that woman. Number 3. Doorbell liquor. On January 8, 2019, police started searching for a man in Salinas, California, who spent 3 hours licking a doorbell in the middle of the night. The individual in question, Roberto Daniel Aurora, was easy to track down thanks to a newly installed surveillance system at the home. The Duggan family were not home when Roberto made his way to their doorbell, but their children were. Roberto also moved an extension cord in the front yard, and he relieved himself on camera. But yeah, he licked a doorbell for 3 hours, which which is just disturbing. You kind of laugh about it afterwards because technically he didn't harm anyone, he didn't break anything, homeowner Sylvia told ABC, but I don't know if I'd be able to laugh about it though because it was extremely weird. Number 2, strange woman. On August 24th, 2018, a resident from the Sunrise Ranch neighborhood in Montgomery, Texas, contacted local authorities after a strange woman rang her doorbell in the middle of the night. A partially undressed woman who appeared to be wearing some sort of hand restraint rang the bell and left. Some people believe she was related to a local missing persons, but law enforcement do not believe that she matched the missing person flyers that were sent in. Now, deputies canvassed the area with descriptions of the mysterious woman and asked neighbors if they had heard anything. Then on August 29th, authorities identified the 32-year-old woman as only Lauren. Police confirmed that she was alive after a house call. A man in the home threatened to end his life, and when authorities arrived, they discovered the man, later identified as Dennis Collins. He had died from a self-inflicted. Now, Dennis's girlfriend was the mysterious woman. Authorities say she is the victim of domestic violence. On September 18th, Lauren opened up on Inside Edition detailing how she ended up at the doorbell. She fell asleep next to her boyfriend of 4 months and woke up to what seemed like a nightmare. I woke up and he was kneeling on my chest and stuffing some sort of cloths in my mouth, she said. I truly felt like I was going to die that night. And coming in at number 1 is house explosion. On August 16th of this year, an explosion in a residential suburb outside of Pittsburgh left 6 people dead, including a father and son, and injured several others. It destroyed 3 houses and damaged at least a dozen more, authorities said. First responders who rushed to the plum found people trapped under debris and took 3 people to the hospital. The remains of 5 victims, 4 adults and 1 child, was also found at the scene. Another person died a couple days later at a local hospital. The Allegheny County Office of the Medical Examiner said. Now, the incident appeared to begin when one house exploded, engulfing 2 neighboring homes in flames as well, according to the county. Now, multiple other homes were damaged with windows blown out, and crews from 18 fire departments covered the scene and put out the flames and sift through the rubble. Now, what's incredible is that a neighboring house caught the explosion on camera. Fire officials are still investigating the cause of the explosion, and investigators are aware the homeowners of the exploded house were having issues with the water tank in their basement and are looking into that as a potential cause, along with any and all other possibilities, they said in an update. I heard this boom, it was so loud that it woke me up. I thought it was thunder from the storms last night, a neighbor Alexis Tempinski told CNN affiliate WTAE. My water bottle fell on me instantaneously. I was shaking. It scared me so bad.